In a small, forgotten village tucked between the hills and the sea, there lived an old painter named Lucien. No one knew his age nor where he came from. Some said he was born under a comet. Others whispered that he never truly slept, that each night when the world closed its eyes, he wandered the sky with his brush. Lucien's house sat at the edge of the cliffs, its windows forever glowing faintly with the reflection of stars. Inside, the walls were covered in paintings, skies that shimmered, oceans that glowed, dreams caught in color. He never painted the living, only light, only what couldn't be touched. Each night, as the village went dark, Lucien would climb to the top of the hill with his easel and his old wooden stool. He carried no lantern, for he needed none. The stars themselves gave him light. He'd sit there for hours, his wrinkled hands tracing invisible shapes through the air, as if the sky were his canvas. And sometimes, when the night was still enough, people swore they saw him lift his brush and paint directly on the stars. One night, as a storm gathered over the sea, Lucien noticed something strange. Among the billions of stars above, one was missing. He rubbed his eyes. Surely it was hidden behind a cloud. But as the wind cleared the sky, the dark patch remained, a small, perfect void where light used to be. Lucien's heart ached as if something inside him had gone dim. He packed his paints, returned home, and stared at the night sky through his window until sleep found him. That night he dreamed. He was standing in a sky made of glass. Stars hung below his feet and above his head, endless and alive. In the distance, a soft voice whispered, "The light fades because no one remembers." He turned, but there was only silence. Then a faint shimmer, the outline of a young woman made of dust and light. "Who are you?" he asked. "I am what you once painted," she said. "The light of things forgotten." Lucien reached out his hand. "And what is happening to the stars?" "They fade," she said gently, "when people stop looking up." The voice dissolved into wind. When Lucien awoke, his room was filled with faint sparkles, like stars trapped in dust. He knew what he had to do. At dawn, he gathered his paints, colors he had mixed over years from the pigments of dawn and the salt of the sea. He walked back to the hill and began painting the sky. But this time he didn't paint what he saw. He painted what he remembered. He painted the laughter of a child catching fireflies, the shimmer of rain on a lantern, the eyes of a girl who once brought him bread and smiled as though stars lived in her heart. And as his brush moved, something miraculous happened. The stars above began to glow again. Each stroke brought a spark back to life. Night after night, Lucien painted. He painted not just the stars, but the spaces between them. He painted warmth into the cold, stories into the void. And soon, travelers passing through the village began to notice that the sky above this small seaside town was brighter than anywhere else in the world. But Lucien grew weaker. With every stroke, he gave a little of himself to the stars. On the final night of autumn, he climbed the hill one last time. The sky was clear, the air still. He sat on his stool, brush trembling in his hand. Before him stretched a single empty patch of sky, one last dark place. He smiled. Just one more. He dipped his brush into the jar of shimmering paint, a color made from starlight and his own tears, and lifted it toward the heavens. But his hand paused. His eyes softened. "What if," he whispered, "the stars could paint themselves?" He placed the brush down, looked at the sky, and whispered a word only the wind could hear. The next morning, the villagers found his easel, his stool, and his brush, but no Lucien. Above, the missing patch of sky now gleamed with a new constellation, a figure holding a brush, surrounded by endless light. The people named it the Painter of Starlight. And from that night on, whenever the stars shone especially bright, it was said that Lucien still painted, not with hands but with memory. For every person who looked up and remembered wonder added one more brushstroke to his eternal sky. Years later, a child sat beneath that same sky, holding a tiny paintbrush. Her mother asked what she was doing. "I'm helping," the child said. "Helping who?" "The man who paints the stars." Her mother smiled but didn't stop her. And above them, in the great dark sea of the universe, one more star began to glow. Milky Way. End of story. A Dreemly original sleep story, written for imagination, calm, and deep rest.